Hey guys, and welcome back. Well, today we have a very special video. We're going to do two things. One, I'm going to talk about how to make real money as a 3D artist in an area that nobody is talking about. And two, I'm going to tell you my secret. Okay, so stick around. This video has been made possible by Rebusfarm, the professional render service. Okay guys, well, chances are if you are a 3D artist or you are studying to become one, that money is tight. Okay, you have student loans, you're working from gig to gig, you don't really have a fixed income, and you're wondering how to make sure you have an income as years go by. Okay, well, I'm going to fix that problem for you because I'm going to tell you a fairly easy way to make a decent income, pretty much like quote unquote regular folks. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to get rid of that fantasy of working for Pixar, but you know, reality tells us that for most of us, that's not going to happen, okay? Now, if you are focusing on a video game industry or movie industry, you are working on a project base at best, okay? If you get hired, you're hired for a project, and once the project is done, you're out of a job, okay? So, what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is what I like to call the gray area. And it's not gray in the sense that it's illegal or anything. It's gray in the sense that it's usually not talked about, not considered a market for 3D artists, and also call it gray because of the area that I will describe right now. Okay, so the gray area is local businesses, corporations, and so forth. Right now, if you look at the business in general as supply and demand, there is a certain demand for 3D work, and that is not only for video games and movies, but more and more for medical situations, working for defense, for car manufacturers, for kitchen producers, all sorts of companies, right? So that demand is growing and growing and growing, and the supply comes from 3D artists, people like you, okay? Now, we're all fighting over a bone, so who's gonna work at Pixar? And very few people are focusing on that business, okay? Most of these companies don't have actual people hired, on a fixed contract, so there's a lot of freelance work going on. Now, that's where you come in. So if you are an independent artist, a freelance artist, you are in fact a company, okay? And your primary asset is you. Besides your hardware, your software, and so forth, you are the main asset of your company because of your skills, your talent, your knowledge, and so forth. And that's how you can meet their demand, okay? That brings me to my secret. So why am I telling you this? Well, for the simple reason that my secret is that I have been a suit all my life. So what do I mean by that? Well, I spent the last 30 years working as a manager and a senior manager on enterprise level and a business consultant, helping companies, Fortune 500 companies, sometimes with well over 100,000 employees, okay? Airlines, banks, insurance companies, and so forth. And my primary job is to help them make more money, okay? So how do you lower cost? How do you increase revenue? How do you increase profits, and so forth? And that is exactly what is going on with you, okay? Now, any company will look at, okay, so what is supply, what is demand, and how can we make them meet, all right? Now, in your scenario, what you're gonna do is you're gonna focus on local businesses. Any business that has a product that is visually appealing and needs to be presented in a nice way, all right? So, for example, I worked for a company where they manufactured steel beds, okay? Now, they typically don't have a 3D team or even a creative team, so what they would do is they would hire a 3D artist and they would say, okay, we came up with an idea for a new product, but we need to present it to our marketing team, our sales team, and so forth, and we need a nice 3D model that has is fully rendered, looks clean and everything, so we can show that to people that are of interest. Now, back in the day, you would have a sketch or something in Photoshop. Nowadays, it's all 3D, right? There's another reason why they will ask you to do that, because the alternative will cost them a lot of money. Because if they don't have this 3D artist, they will have to go into the factory, take a bunch of steel tubes, weld them together, powder coat them, set them up in a showroom, take pictures, and so forth. So instead of you spending a day on that 3D design, they got 3 people spending a week on it, okay? Now that is your window of opportunity. So that is where the business is, okay? So next coming up is, okay, what business to approach and how to approach them, okay? Here we go. Okay, so as far as what companies, like I said, production companies that have a visually appealing product that needs to be presented as such, okay? So let's say a company that makes, I don't know, leather gloves. Will that, work? No. For the simple reason, they can take a pair of gloves, put it in a light box, take a picture, and they're done. So think of companies that have a very intensive highly cost and highly labor intensive process when they have to do something like this. For example, a company like IKEA that has a huge catalog, right? They have a plastic salad bowl in there that costs $5. They'll take the salad bowl, take a picture, put it in the catalog. But what if they are looking at a $20,000 kitchen in the color lime green, right? They're not gonna get 2 or 3 guys, build that entire kitchen, do a photo shoot, and then tear it down again. What they'll do is they'll ask a 3D artist to create it for them. And they could say, okay, change the doors, change the color, whatever. And it's much, much cheaper, it's less time, and more companies do that. For example, car manufacturing companies, they do this all the time. A lot of cars in brochures at dealerships, they're actually 3D models and not actual cars, because they don't have to transport them to a photo shoot location. They don't have to worry about the car being dirty or that it's being spotted somewhere by a journalist or whatever, okay? So that is kind of the field where you work. So my next step is, how do you get in front of these customers and how do you get them to hire you, okay? Hang on. Okay, so you figured out what your customer or potential customer base will be, okay? You scanned the area, you know what companies there are, you know what they do, and you know whether or not it's expensive for them to do that kind of work, okay? So this is potentially, work for you. So how are they gonna hire you? Well, first of all, you need to make sure you have a strong portfolio. If you go to ArtStation, everybody has characters and guns and weapons and so forth. Very few people have 50 different kitchens, right? Or gold rings set with diamonds. For example, jewelers do this all the time. If you want to buy a very expensive wedding ring, the jeweler is not going to make it, and then you can go and say, nah, What they'll do is they'll ask you, and they'll do a sketch, they'll do a 3D design, they'll show you the ring in 3D with the gold, with the diamonds, and it's realistically rendered. And then you can change it and so forth, and then when you're happy, they'll go out and make it, okay? That's how that works. That makes sense, right? So make sure you have a strong portfolio and decide whether you want to have a specialty or not. Are you going to specialize in jewelry or not? Well, that depends kind of on your local circumstances, okay? So you know what companies to approach, you know where their needs are, you know that you need a strong portfolio. Now, the next thing is, how do you get in front of the customers? Well, a couple of ways. You can do what they call cold selling. So just drive up to the company, knock on their door and say, hey, I want to talk to your owner, your managing director, your sales director, or your marketing person, okay? That's one way to do it, but kind of tricky. You can approach people online, but what I personally would do is I would invest some time and do some homework on what local companies do, and I would do some test work for them, totally for free. What I would do is I would find out who is the person in charge, I would send them an email, I would put in some low resolution snapshots, and I would ask them if they could spare 30 minutes of their time to listen to my story, all right? So kind of let me do a sales pitch. Now, if they are agreed with that, I would go over there, I'd make sure that I got, really clean and high resolution renders with me of their work, and I would tell them how the process works, okay? So if they have, for example, a product that needs to be done in 3D, how long will it take? What is the process? What information do I need? And especially, what are the costs, okay? So finally, let's look about the cost aspect of this, okay? Here we go. Okay, money. Well, when we talk about money and what you need to charge for your work, obviously it depends heavily on where you live and what the cost of living is generally. I mean, if you live in California, the rate will be quite different than if you live in, I don't know, Bangalore, for example. But in general, you need to be well aware of what you can ask and what you should ask. Now, keep in mind that the biggest mistake that most artists make is they are way, way, way too cheap. And why are they too cheap? Because they're happy that they have a gig and they want to make some money, right? So you're talking to this company, right? And he saw your test renders and so forth, and he says, well, okay, I'll give you a shot, okay? So you're happy, right? Now, what you can do there is say, okay, I'll work for you for 10 bucks an hour, right? Within 6 months, you're done, because you cannot sustain your process that way. You need to make decent wages because you need to pay for your hardware, your software, your training, all that kind of stuff. All the hours that you're not working, you have to have an income as well, right? So compare it to the alternative. Let's take that IKEA story. They're setting up an entire kitchen, right? They got 2 or 3 people building a kitchen, taking them, 3 days. So that's 3 people, 3 days, right? If you go out and you say, okay, I'll do that complete model for you from start to finish, nice render and everything, and you're gonna pay $1,000. That's cheap, right? So that's kind of how you can approach that. It all depends, on how you want to set that up. Now, keep in mind that your reputation is everything. As an individual freelance artist, if you say you're going to do something, do it. If you can't, don't. Tell them. Don't be afraid to say no because whatever reason. If you can't, you can't, okay? And as you build that reputation, you will get more and more customers, and they'll help you to get more business, and that way you will make money, okay? If your final goal is, yes, but I definitely want to get into that game industry, then you can decide to do the freelance work 2 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever, and focus the rest of your time developing your end goal, okay? So that's all I have to say about this. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and if you do, please hit that like button, subscribe, and please share this video. That would help me out a lot, okay? Well, thank you guys for watching this, and see you guys next time. Bye. Well, thanks for watching, and before you go, please hit that MH button to subscribe, okay? See you guys next time. Bye.